student isn't going to be able to achieve their full potential unless they actually feel like they belong to what they're doing. Schools are starting to realize that we need to give more opportunities to students to find the best of their talents, that there's not just a grade at the end of the day that defines who they are.
Hello and welcome to Your School Journey. Today we are joined by Chris Henderson, who comes to us with over 18 years experience in schools. And Chris has just been appointed as our new head of senior school here at Emmanuel College. We're going to talk today about a really interesting topic that has changed over the last 20 years, particularly since Chris has been involved as a teacher, and that is that of student wellbeing. Welcome to the podcast, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
It's so great to have you, and I'm really going to look forward to actually digging deeper into this one. So over the last 20 years, maybe 20 years ago, if we wind back the clock, we've got a situation where we're talking academic outcomes. The teacher goes in, teaches the class, they do exams, assignments, what have you, and that's all school's about. But today it's a very, very different story. So from your perspective, what do you feel has changed in the whole landscape that pushes us into something more than academics?
I think within the last 20 years, the whole educational reform, changing assessments, more assessments, trying to squeeze as much as you can out of a student, pretty much realised that that's not enough, that there's more to the student than just sitting in the classroom learning content on a piece of paper. And schools have started to realise that we need to give more opportunities to students to find the best of their talents, that there's not just a grade at the end of the day that defines who they are, but they actually have character skills or talents or leadership skills that can be applied across many contexts. So what schools are trying to do is trying to open up that little box and say, okay, what do we need to do to further deep dive into these skills that these students have? And now as they've started exploring, it's got wider and wider and wider. So you see, or you think about, for example, the Duke of Edinburgh Award, which is one award that's done globally across many schools, but that was the only thing that was done. And then all of a sudden we add in, other trips, excursions and everything on top of that students can actually excel in. Then we start to say, there's more here than just one thing that they can do.
Are you finding that those kind of things are just those one-offs, the Duke of Edinburgh, as the different experiences that you can go on, or things actually starting to move into the classroom as well?
Yeah, it's those transferable skills. I definitely come from a sporting background, and those leadership, teamwork, learning, getting better, learning from mistakes, all those traits of coaching are actually transferable into the classroom, because students have to work together for them to get the best out of themselves. And you take that Duke of Edinburgh, again, not getting stuck in it, but that element of actually challenging yourself in a difficult environment. If you go back to seeing that in the classroom, teachers and parents didn't really want their students to be challenged too much that they would fail or they couldn't do it. And it's very hard to let a student just explore themselves and get themselves out of a ditch in learning to actually get the outcome. Whereas in Duke of Ed, when you're walking and you're fatigued, you just have to dig in and get through it. It's not really allowed as much in the classroom as it has been. So it's trying to find that balance between, being uncomfortable, but being comfortable being uncomfortable.
So switching gears now, looking at this idea of some schools call it pastoral care, others call it different things, behaviour education, and also student wellbeing. And we've got bigger departments, we've got more staff that are kind of involved with that. Yeah. Why do you think that there's been a growth in that particular area over the last 20 years?
I think this is something I've really enjoyed being part of. When I first got into teaching, it was because of that relational element that I had with the students. Those shared experiences that I had that made it a fun experience for me to be part of. And I think this realization that a student isn't going to be able to achieve their full potential unless they actually feel like they belong to what they're doing. So this whole idea of this belonging, which is this psychological membership towards their classroom where they feel accepted, respected and included, but also supported, really gets the best out of what they can do. Whereas if they felt they weren't part of that classroom, you can't get full engagement within the lesson. So if you could have someone sitting in the back of the class, keeps their head down, straight B student, B's all across the board, doesn't contribute, whereas before that would have been okay, now we're starting to see, well, where's the engagement in the lesson? Where's the growth? Where's the relationship side that we can really start to get the best out of those students? So this whole pastoral space and well-being is starting to really nurture the full holistic student to try and get that full engagement within the classroom, that they can reach their full potential.
And do you have any kind of ideas as to why that's changing over the years, in terms of, like, we've got more and more kind of additional support structures beyond the classroom?
I think we need to go back quite a while ago to, even families, and I'm going back here, sorry, to the United Kingdom, but families, industrialization and that revolution, they would have just been living in rows of houses. Their dads would have worked in the factories. It was a big compliant culture that you need to do this work, get the outcome, get the job, go. If you want to get into this job, get these grades, this is what you do. It was very much an A plus B equals C process. But as things changed and people moved and there's migration, different identities coming together, these whole clash of cultures really changed not just the compliant culture, but actually we're working with individuals here, not just groups of people that should follow a process, but actually working on individual talents and saying, oh, things can actually change. Then you bring in the whole boom of technology and the new jobs from that. We really entered this creative culture. So rather than a, factory mechanics, hands-on skill set, working on farms, things like that, we've now moved towards being more creative and creating things and using our brains more. And we can only do that when we feel happy, connected, and engaged in what we're doing. So I think schools have realized that the landscape of where students are leaving and the jobs they're going into, they need to deep dive more into that skill set. And the only way we can do that is not through a compliant culture, but actually by getting the best out of them.
And you did mention that that student learning is linked very much so to their psychological well-being, their ability to actually feel like they belong and all those kind of things. Do you have any studies, any kind of information that you've picked up over the years that kind of points to that particular fact?
Yeah, I think if you look at the OECD and the PISA results consistently over the last 10 years, it really does show those Nordic countries originally who were doing so well. They value time outside, they value their rest, they really look after that holistic well-being. And if you even remember back to COVID, what we could do was exercise and still communicate. They're the big things that globally we appreciated. These are really important for your health, that you need a time outside and you need to communicate with people face to face. So the successful schools and the successful countries, they've really invested time allowing students to be outside, learn in different environments. It's not behind a desk. It's actually get out there face to face with each other, which is strange because then we look at the decline in belonging and the decline. And, at one point it's been going very well. And now there's this, it's deteriorating. And we're looking into why is that? And what studies are coming out to show is it's pretty much that whole educational reform, stress on perform better in exams, because year after year, teachers are getting better. We know the content more. Students are getting better results. So we need to change the curriculum. We need to change this. We need to change. There's always so much change because it's the success is breeding that success. And it comes to the point, well, how much more are we going to squeeze out of these students? Because an A now is so different to an A 20 years ago because it's so much harder to achieve. So that pressure and that stress has really led to that decline in belonging because students are feeling the pressure through that anxiety and depression from that.
So you're mentioning pressure there. Are there other pressures that you think that students and families are also facing at this time that kind of is attributing to this? To
the deterioration of belonging? I'd say the one main factor is a device, is the fact that we all have a device in our hands that is linked into social media, and the boom of social media, of the comparison culture, the looking online, the dopamine fix. When students are scrolling, they're getting that dopamine fix and then trying to have that engagement in the classroom when they're not getting a quick dopamine fix like they are when they're scrolling. And to try and adapt and to maintain focus has been the big shift for me recently.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on the social media ban that's come through in Australia?
It's fantastic. I'd say within the pastoral space, about 80% of our issues originate outside the classroom. If you go back 20, 30 years where you could sort out a problem there and then they leave the school, they go home, that problem doesn't exist anymore. Whereas what we're seeing now is issues are being extended into the home. So that safe and supportive environment of the home life is actually blown wide open because of that social media aspect.
So have you seen that yourself in your experience? Probably not at this school, clearly,
Yeah.
because we've only just arrived. But in your experience in pastoral areas, have you seen? Have you got any examples where you've seen some of that happen? That things from outside the home have actually arrived at school and caused issues?
Yeah, and it's a difficult one because we're here obviously to support the student, and if they're coming in with an issue, they're coming in struggling, we have to support them in that and address that. And it goes from the smallest things to the biggest. And one of the smallest things would simply be kicked out of a group, a chat. You're in a WhatsApp group or Snapchat, as they all did, and then all of a sudden they get kicked out, or they don't get respected, or they're not responding to. That person feels excluded. So immediately, by no one giving them those likes or responding to what they're saying, they have in the back of their mind that thought, I'm actually not part of this group, which is again negating that belonging feeling. So when they come into school, they pick up these cues that my friends aren't speaking to me, they don't like me. And this downward spiral of self-belief just happens because of just cues that they're picking up, which is wrong. And we all know that if we send an email, that tone is lost in text. So think of students and kids nowadays, of how they communicate is over text. So they don't see tone, they don't hear the voice, they don't actually get that connection. So friendships ebb and flow far more than they did just based on that small thing.
So really, many parents today had a completely different experience at school because they didn't have to deal with this extra.
Yeah.
Is that the
and
main thrust?
We can probably sit here and if you think back at school, the mistakes that you made yourself, or things that you may have said to someone that, were put out there, and then you just addressed it, moved on. Now it's a screenshot. You carry it. The baggage and the mistakes you make are out there forever to be seen and to be brought up again. It's not just move on, get past it. It's shared by everybody. Everybody knows it. And it's harder then to move through that.
So how do schools address this kind of thing to actually kind of turn the tide back the other way?
I think there's a real pendulum swing at the minute. I think, that phone-free generation and, the big UK movement as well with that, Australia leading the social media ban. I think it's that difficult line with parents between not wanting their son or daughter to miss out, but with the long-term gain of that. And what that's saying is holding off giving them a device or a mobile phone, because they may feel, if they don't have it, they might miss out on the birthday parties, they may miss out on the friendships. So they give them that device because they don't want their child to miss out, which is fine. But if you simply hold off the long-term gain, because they won't be exposed by things, they don't see things that they're not meant to see, that long-term gain is so important that they become better people, more balanced in themselves, more regulated, and actually know what true friendship is.
That's quite a challenge, isn't it? Because the schools are faced with, we'd love it if parents could do this. And then, of course, when that doesn't happen, then we're faced with kind of what the consequences are. Are there other things at schools that we're able to do that can help this as well?
Yeah, it's probably around learning as well, is not relying so much on the devices, but getting back to pen and paper, using the device as a facilitator, but not the whole thing. And I think, again, it's going from typing in a text box towards writing on a piece of paper, and normalizing that as work allows kids to actually move away from the device and actually engage just with pen and paper.
So we've talked a lot about school responsibility. We've talked a lot about parent responsibility. But I guess my question would then be, where does the school's responsibility end and the parent responsibility begin, and vice versa?
Yeah, it's such a blended boundary. And it's a difficult one because it's no one person's responsibility for the development of a child. In schools, we care for the psychological, social, emotional, the full suite for that student. But also at home, the parents aren't the experts in the learning. So it's trying to find that balance between what can we do, what can they do. But the important thing is that we work together in a partnership, that we can get the best out of the child that we have before us. So what I'd suggest for parents as well at home is it's getting the small things right. And the big focus, I say, is those TNTs. It's those tiny noticeable things that takes no talent. And the big thing for me is making sure that the student is fed well. Are they having a good breakfast? Have they got a good lunch? When they come home, do they have a good dinner? Are they getting sleep? And again, we go back to those devices, is the device doesn't need to be in the bedroom. As soon as you hand that device to a student, they have access to the whole world and anybody can see them. And once you see something, it can't be unseen. So just take away that pressure, just remove that device from that bed, from the room, cut out the blue light, allow them to get sleep. Once you get those environmental things correct, we're setting them up for success. So when they enter the school environment, they're actually best placed to actually deal with stress, because school isn't a place for students to come and be okay. They don't come here and just be okay. They come here to grow. And that growth can only happen through stress, by learning something that's difficult, by engaging in a difficult situation and just navigating that. Which is where I'll probably get on to my next point, that trust is a big thing, that parents need to trust the process within the schools, that the staff are doing everything they can, but also allowing the student to grow in that space of opportunity that they have. And I was just listening actually recently to a podcast, and it was talking about an area in the brain that actually grows and develops the more you're under stress. So the more your body actually finds things that are difficult, and that can be difficult friendships, learning something new, finding your way around a new building, your body actually responds positively, and it actually grows in its ability to be a body and to be an efficient machine by going through that stress. Now, if we remove that resilience and we remove those opportunities for failure, then the human actually never grows. And whenever we put ourselves in difficult situations, we don't adapt the way we're meant to survive. So it's probably just allowing students to find those difficult spots, but to grow, navigate through them, and come out the other side a better person, developed in their character.
That's fantastic, Chris. Some excellent advice for our parent community that's listening to the podcast. Did you have any final words that you wanted to share with them?
The only thing is, I'd say nowadays is difficult. We couldn't grow up. I wouldn't want to grow up as a child today, but we're the adults in this situation. We need to make the adult decisions. We need to make the big decisions. And if something's right, then make the big decision, because in the long term, it will help them. And that's most likely saying no to things and not letting them always have what they need to have, but just maybe saying no, not yet.
It's brilliant, Chris. It's so great to have your company today, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thanks, man.